Hi, YouTube. Tuka here with some more thoughts for you. Today we're gonna go ahead and debunk our old friend Professor Jiang again. So in this video, he gives us the three advantages of empire, which in this case is the U.S., and he points out how these advantages are actually disadvantages, and then he also gives us advantages of the barbarians or the opposing faction, Iran in this case, and how they can be used to defeat the American Empire. So we're gonna start with the Empire first, which is how he started his speech. So he gives three advantages to the U.S. Mass. That means you have so many people, you can deploy a lot of them, and still not impact your economy and all that stuff. Organization. You have a good logistics, and you have an advantage in science and technology. And depth. So that means that you can absorb losses and all that stuff. So the classic example of depth is going to be something like the Roman Empire. So let's say take for example Rome versus Carthage. So that would be the Second Punic War, Rome versus Hannibal. Rome actually sent out multiple armies against Hannibal, and they all kept getting destroyed. In fact, Hannibal was actually wondering why Rome wasn't giving up yet. But Rome just kept raising army after army after army and kept using the same tactics over and over again, and they kept getting destroyed. And actually, that's the that's the theory that Professor Jiang points out. Death leads to insulation because you don't actually need to learn from your enemy. That means that you don't actually learn anything, so you just keep using the same tactics over and over again. So I just want to point out that this is not actually the case for the US. Um, Consider what's happening right now. How many people do you think the US has deployed to this? How many people do you think Iran has deployed to this? Like, count the number of Basiji, count the number of IRGC, and everyone defending Iran right now, and count the number of people in the carrier groups and maybe the scattered people in the bases. I think you'll see that the IRGC has a major advantage in numbers, just pure numbers. We're not talking about technology or anything yet. So why am I saying this? The U.S. doesn't operate like an empire which can handle losses. Um, right now, the U.S. has six losses, combat casualties. You know everything about them. You know their names, you know their location, you know their designation, you know how they died. You know everything about them. If the U.S. truly didn't care about losses, you wouldn't even mind six losses. You would be prepared to take losses in the hundreds, in the thousands. But that's not true with the U.S. Six losses, and already we're saying it's too much. What more if we get into the 50s or the 60s, or God forbid, the hundreds range? So it's not true that the U.S. has the advantage of death. In fact, the U.S. has the disadvantage of death because it's not prepared to take multiple casualties. And I think this is actually a disadvantage from Professor Jiang being in China, because I think that if China were to engage in a war like this, and they were to lose like 100 or 1,000 people, the Chinese civilization or country wouldn't even really care. But it's not the same with the U.S. Now that actually leads us to learning from the enemy or learning lessons. So it's not true that the U.S. doesn't actually learn from the enemy. So take a look at the this one. This is the Lucas drone. It's a new drone that's only being deployed in this current war. It's pretty much a copy of the Shahed drone. It has some upgrades like satellite link ups and all that stuff, because you expect that from the U.S. But for all intents and purposes, it's a cheap drone that you use to destroy stuff, much like the Shahid drone of the Iranians. So it's not true that we haven't learned anything. We actually take stuff from Iran. Next, battlefield doctrine. Um, I'd like you to pay attention to the speeches made by Hegseth. Whether you agree with it or not, there's definitely been an evolution of the doctrine from the Iraq war to the Iran war. So in the Iraq War and Afghanistan War, there was an expectation of nation building. So we would get in, we would destroy stuff, but we would rebuild it after. Hegseth, Trump, and everyone has been making it clear there will be no nation building. Period. No nation building. Now, that means that the U.S. is not gonna be in here for the long term. Because when you do nation building, you have to stay. You have to keep troops there, because you're gonna be building infrastructure. You're gonna do all of that, and you have to keep it protected. So, nation building already is a mindset that you're gonna be staying there for the long term. And the way that we're operating right now means that it's actually up to the Iranians. If you guys don't surrender before everything is destroyed, you're gonna be left with the Gaza. So they have to consider that now. Before, the Iraqis could just keep going because they know that the U.S. would rebuild them anyway. Now next, no boots on the ground. So Iraq had 100, 200,000 troops on the ground. I can't imagine you would find 100, 200,000 Americans willing to go into Iran. Now, does that mean that we will have no, as in zero boots on the ground? No. And it would be foolish to commit to zero boots on the ground. Consider Maduro. We had like what, 20 to 100 boots on the ground, and we captured Maduro. What if there's an opportunity where we can capture whoever the Ayatollah is at that time? Or what if there's an opportunity where we can send in a 200 man raid to blow up a building or something valuable? I mean, war is like constant chaos. I mean, there's gonna be opportunities popping up all the time. The point is, though, that we're not gonna be sending 100,000, 200,000 troops to go into Iraq. Now, we could maybe lure the Kurds and other stuff into it, which we'll discuss later. But it's not gonna be a mass deployment by the U.S. because the U.S. has no death. The U.S. is not afraid to take is not amenable to taking casualties. So the death is actually on the Iranian side this time. Like, look, this is the current casualties right now. U.S. of course has U.S. has six. So, of course, the ones we know about. Um, US has six. Iran has at least 3,000 or 1,000. So 1,000 to 3,000. You know everybody who's been killed by the US. The only ones you know about in Iran is probably the 200, 300 girls that were killed. And that's it. They don't even care to disclose the other ones. And honestly, I think 3,000 casualties is far too low. You've had so far something like 2,000, 3,000 sorties. And you know that Iran already claims 300 girls were killed in like one sortie. And during the initial wave, Khamenei and like 20 to 40 people close to him were killed in just one sortie, because they were all in the same place. Then you know the building for the gathering of the elders type thing. They were killed, and there were at least 40 to 80 people there as well. So just in three strikes, in three sorties, something like 300 to 400 to 500 people were killed, depending on who you believe. So that's just three. And Iran is claiming that they only have 3,000 losses so far, or 1,000 losses so far. So it's practically impossible. That's the only losses. When you have a thousand sorties, or more than 1,000 sorties. So in fact, it's actually Iran that doesn't care about how many people can get killed, because they have death, because they have 90 million people to choose from. Next, he says that there's a advantage of organization, which leads to tech superiority, which actually leads to a calcification of the ruling class. So you lead to like an overproduction of elites, which leads to no more elites being produced, which leads to factionalism, or Republicans versus Democrats. So it's actually true that we have an elite structure that is very antagonistic to each other. The Republicans and Democrats hate each other. But when it comes to threats to the empire, they actually work together. Consider what is going on right now. You can't actually get a war powers resolution passed because one party will block it, and the other party is not particularly motivated enough to filibuster or to go to the media. They do make some half-hearted attempts, but that's it. They're not really putting their heart into it. You only have the extreme left wing who are really against this war. Now, aside from that, we're still developing new technologies. Now, it might not be America, it could be our allies, but new technologies are still getting developed. Consider the Iron Beam from Israel. So, one of the breakout moments of these last couple of years is that drone technology really overtook everything else in in uh, in acting as a battlefield multiplier. So Israel developed Iron Beam so that you can destroy drones for $3 per shot, whereas missiles used to do it for 1 million. So it's not true that the U.S. technology has stopped. Now with mass, it's true that the U.S. can afford all of these things because of the number of people, um, and he says that eventually the mass of people leads to indolence because they're not connected to the structure anymore, and they think they can't get ahead and all that stuff. But the truth is that like there are so many people in the U.S. that even if they were not really working at full percent, uh, it doesn't really matter because the other side is so small. In fact, if you consider, if you really consider everything, and you know, if you're really being honest to yourself, and this might offend people, the U.S. isn't really even serious about this war yet. Consider that you have the Iranian diplomats on TV all the time, when Fox or whatever, and they're giving their side of the story. I mean, have you thought what would happen in World War II if you had like a German or a Japanese envoy on TV every night, giving their side of the story? No, because that would have been like disloyalty, or that would have been illegal. That's mini propaganda for all intents and purposes. So what I'm saying is that if the U.S. were really serious, then they would do that. They would not let the enemy go on TV and stuff. In fact, the fact that they do that actually tells you that they're treating this more like a game than anything. You have the opposing team. It's like a video game. You have the opposing team who's getting crushed, and you have their team captain or whoever giving their POV while their team is getting spanked, all for the entertainment of the American people. Now, they're doing it to influence the American people to stop the war because they know that's the only way the American people will lose. But it's still entertainment for the masses. So it's not true that the masses are not really are a disadvantage to the U.S. here. Um, it's the opposite of anything. All right, so let's go to the other side. Um, 1 minute. Let's just get this to so many ads.
You have hubris is just which now
Okay, so
energy.
Professor Jiang gives three advantages to the opposing side: energy, unity, cohesion rather, and openness. So um, let's go with cohesion first. There has been there has been some news that the Kurds are getting ready to get involved in the side of the U.S. Now, this has actually freaked out the left because they know that if this happens, there's a very high chance that Iran is not going to make it through this. Now, whether the U.S. takes over, or whether Iran gets chopped up, or whether the regime collapses, they know that at the end of if the Kurds get involved, at the end of this, Iran is not going to be the same Iran that came out of this. It's not going to be a single unified country anymore, and the best case scenario is a civil war. So if, as Professor Jiang says, there is cohesion among Iranians, why are we seeing Kurds, which are part Iran, which is part of Iran? There's like two or three provinces filled with Kurds. Why are they getting going into battle inside of the Americans? In fact, I'll make this prediction for you. It's now day 7, I think, of the war. That would be Friday or Thursday, depending on where you are. Um, I predict that by the end of this weekend, so that will be day 10 maybe or 8 or 9. So that will be like by Sunday night. The Azerbaijanis will have entered the war on the side of the US. They would have the support of the Azeri population in northwestern Iran, and they would have those two provinces or those three or four provinces which are populated by the Azeris, asking for their protection to break away from the Iranian Republic or the Iranian theocracy. So if that were true, um, how how uh, how how cohesive really is Iran? Now, on the other side of Iran, I also make this prediction for you guys. It's now day 7, as we said. By next week, by the end of next week, so let's say day 17, on the southeastern side of Iran, the Baluchs will also have broken off from Iran, and they would have asked support from Pakistan to absorb them, and that would essentially balkanize Iran even further. And one major prediction I'd give for you: by the end of this war, the word Iran will no longer be there. You'll have a successor state by the name of Persia, similar to USSR and Russia, which will be much smaller than Iran, probably one half to two thirds as small. And that will be the new entity. Why? Because they are not cohesive. There is no cohesion there. Next, openness. Professor Jiang says that in order for Iran to succeed, they have to be very open as a society. So that means that whether you're a peasant, whether you're a prince, or whether you're a soldier or someone, your abilities are appreciated and all that stuff. That's not true. Everything in Iran is controlled by the RRGC. So that means only the military and to some extent the theocracy has any say in this. So that means that there's a portion of the population similar to the argument of mass that is already alienated from society. They just want this over with. They don't care whether it's the theocracy that continues or whether it's a new government. They just want this done with. So that would be like the merchants, that would be the students. They're not particularly committed to a new regime, but they just don't want to fight. Next, energy. So energy only works if everybody's pulling in the same direction. But as we pointed out, you have the Kurds, you have the Azeris, you have the Baluchs, you have the Turkmenistanis. You have all these ethnic groups in Iran that can potentially pull in other directions. Now, the argument is that they're all Shia, therefore, they will all pull towards the same direction. I would like to debunk this by saying that Azerbaijan is another fully Shia country as well, and uh, in that country has been a Israeli ally, even though they're Shia. So it doesn't make sense. It doesn't follow that if you're Shia, you automatically ally with Iran. I'd also like to point out Lebanon, where in the Shia Hezbollah faction started a war with Israel, and they're getting persecuted right now, or I don't know if persecuted is the right term, but they're getting I don't know, they're getting lambasted right now by the Christians and the Sunni Muslims because they dragged Lebanon into another war, which would bring further devastation into the people. So much so that the Lebanese army is acting against Hezbollah right now. So that is to say that having a majority Shia population could actually turn the parts of the population that are not Shia. Maybe the Baluchs, Azeris, and Kurds are not really that religious. That you can turn that. It can work to turn it against you. So again, energy is not really a factor in this case because many different groups in the country will have many different directions they want to take the country in. So again, I want to point out to everyone the point of this video. All of these things that tell you that the U.S. is gonna lose, the U.S. is gonna, whatever. This is all a psychological operation to break the will of the American people, because that's the only way you can actually get them to lose. This turns out to be a slugging match between America and Iran, there's no way Iran can win, because China and Russia has not even deigned to help the Iranians. Well, this has been our thought for the day. Thank you very much for joining me today. I will see you tomorrow. Have a good day.